or at least has tendencies of a narcissist, although that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, because I have some of those too. But apparently, she was hurt in her last game she was ever going to play. And they got to talking to her about it after the game. She was playing the final match of her career, playing for a range championship match against Gotham FC. She went down, Megan Rapinoe did, on a non-contact injury. We believe torn Achilles. And here is Megan Rapinoe's quote about God. I am not a religious person or anything. And if there was a God, not is, which would be the proper way to phrase this sentence, but if there was a God, like, this is proof that there isn't, Rapinoe said. This is effed up. It's just effed up. 6 minutes in, and I eat my Achilles. I don't get the connection. How does you hurting yourself in a physical feat prove the non-existence of the Lord, God, creative entity? Newsflash, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use an argument from an atheist to kind of prove it. Mr. Show, with Bob and David, right? I think is what that was. David Cross. One of David Cross's best stand-up bits ever was about that plaque people have in their house, Footsteps, where there are two sets of footsteps and then all of a sudden there's one. And it talks about when my hardest times and all of this, Jesus was with me. And David Cross's bit was, so when I'm going through the hardest parts of my life, you just left me there on my own? And his joke was, yes, that was when I was helping one of the other 7 billion people alive, right? So like that's, I mean, again, you could take an atheist's argument for a funny joke and kind of flip it on its head and kind of point back to Megan Rapinoe. Like, this does not prove God does not exist. As a matter of fact, if you want an argument for why Megan Rapinoe tearing her Achilles in her last game proves God exists, I can give you a closer version of that. You hear people say this all the time about trying to disprove God. Why is there suffering in the world? Because that's part of the user agreement. It's built off of faith. And beyond that, sometimes horrific things are placed in your life or people's lives around you to remind you you are in charge of nothing. You control not a thing. Nothing do you control. And sometimes your narcissism needs to be brought down to earth. And you need to be reminded that just because you kick a ball into this net does not make you all powerful. I am all powerful. I am your Lord thy God. You shall place no gods before me. Look at the world you live in. Now, this has always been true. My minister father would have been talking about this in 1988. I know for sure. I was sitting in the first pew hearing it. There were plenty of false gods then, too. But we create more every day. So if you want to sell it as this is proof of one way or the other, I could sell it as, no, this is proof God exists, lady. Because if I've ever seen anybody who kind of needs to be slapped down and brought back down to earth and reminded that they're not the almighty and the all-powerful, the alpha and the omega, Megan Rapinoe fits that list. She fits that bill, baby. She does. You know she does. So if you want to sell it on one way or the other, that's the way you could sell it. Not the, he didn't protect you while playing soccer, so that means he doesn't exist. So Megan Rapinoe didn't get every last thing she wanted. Beyond being a 1%er in the world while crying about it for a decade, being a 1%er in the world. The one thing she didn't get, that proves God doesn't exist. Look at the ego on Megan Rapinoe. Almost like that's what the whole damn book was about.
It's cool when you get up and you feel instantly connected to the world.
The Stansberry Show.
I don't know what it is. I got him on every morning.
On Rock 106.9.
9 a.m., rock the bank with me. Grab an extra $1,000 as we head into expensive season. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day. Jeez. I got a couple of birthdays in January. I know that's probably just a me thing, although not just me. Plenty of you know people who were born in January got to buy some gifts. So it's just like, dude, $100 bills just falling out of the back pocket constantly. We'll get you hooked up at 9 a.m. with a $1,000 keyword. Had been talking to little Megan Rapinoe, soccer star there. And we can't deny that. I mean, she was pretty damn good as an athlete, right? She's been a little obnoxious with some of her views, but like, so has this guy known as Dan Stansbury, right? I've been known to get obnoxious with some of my views. She said after getting hurt in a match, quote, "I'm not a religious person or anything, but if there was a God, like, this is proof that there isn't," Rapinoe said. "This is effed up. It's just effed up. 6 minutes in and I eat my Achilles." And I had been kind of talking about how, well, nah, dude, like, that doesn't prove God doesn't exist. It might prove that he does exist. You're a 1%er. You literally have everything handed to you. Not handed. You worked for a lot of that. You know what? Let me clean that up. But, you know, it takes the average person 10 lifetimes to earn what she makes, right? And, like, so humility is part of religion. That you don't have it all figured out, that you're not capable of just doing everything on your own, that it's not just your athletic ability. That's kind of like the benchmark, right? It kind of goes into it. And I kind of talked about how, you know, I've been turned around on this. I'm not necessarily a full-blown believer, but, like, when my father was alive, I was a little like, dude, really? And, like, we would have these conversations at the dinner table a lot. And then my brother had a kid die. I don't know why I do this. And then it was like 6 months after that, my dad died. Somewhere, I'm pretty close with the math there. And I just got angry at the world, at religion, at everybody. And then somebody thought it was a good idea to put me on the radio right in the middle of all of that, right? And then I just went on a full-blown audio assault of all things religion for a decade. And it was funny, part of it, and it was definitely a ratings winner. As we were highly rated and bringing in a ton of money for the radio station, and I'm proud of that. It wasn't solely off of what I was doing. There was 3 other people in that room, so it was, you know, it was a lot of their hard work too, right? It wasn't just me. But it does bother me when people who don't believe start talking Sky Wizard and Sky Daddy. I don't necessarily like that. I think you can have a conversation without minimizing somebody else's belief. It's possible to do that. But I got a lot of messages during the break about my honesty. And so I want to be honest about where that comes from. And I led you down the path because I told you my brother had a kid die. So we were talking about humility. We were talking about Megan Rapinoe. It's like, no, maybe the Achilles injury is God, or what other people would say was, the universe is showing you. Like, that's even crazier, right? That God's showing you, you need to humble yourself. And again, after the match, she's crying about the one thing that didn't go right in her life. And I said, that's part of what sickness is, sadness is. It's to remind you you're in control of it. And so a lot of people brought up, like, what about terminal kids with cancer? What kind of God does that? And this is where the mysterious ways conversation comes in, and people don't like that because what you're saying is you don't have an answer. But I'm perfectly okay telling you I don't have an answer for it. I don't. People deeply in faith will tell you, again, you're kind of getting to the bedrock of the whole entire system here. That's kind of what the whole system is, right? And I have a hard time kind of, when people say to me, what about the sick kid with cancer? It's like, I can hear you. Because again, my brother had a 4-month-old die in my house. The hospital sent us home. She's dying. There's nothing we can do for you. Just be with this child as often as you can. So the entire family was back living at my mom and dad's house in Aurora, and we just kind of came together. My biggest regret is from that night. And this is where the anger, and this is where 10 years, we were just talking about Caleb Williams crying last week, and I said, I can't jump on the kid, right? Because look at what's happening right now. I said I wanted to jump all over that kid, but I can't do it because I'm an emotional guy. It's on the surface. What you see is what you get with me. For better or worse, that's who I am. But my biggest regret and where that anger and the assault on Christians came from was that night my brother's daughter died in my house in Aurora. And I looked right at my father. I hate this story more than anything in the world. I looked at that man and said, where is your God now? And walked back in his house to do drugs while everybody else was downstairs, losing their mind over the fact that a kid had died. That makes me sick to my stomach that I did that. But that's where the anger came from, man, because like that had happened. I was mad about that. Then my dad died, and I was like, enough is enough. And I just became furious. And again, I did see some religious people kind of turn on my mother in that moment. And it hardened me. And it made me use my better than average sense of humor in this sharp tongue, baby. And then we just gave a tongue lashing to an entire religion for a decade or more. Which, by the way, proves another point I'm always talking about. You can say and do whatever the hell you want to the Christians, man, and nobody bats an eye about it. Those weirdos carrying their Bibles on Wednesday afternoon throughout town, they just kind of deserve it, don't they? That's the way we view it. You be tolerant to all these religions you're seeing around you. Not that one, no, that one's bad. But all the rest of these ones that you don't understand either, show your tolerance. Christians, say whatever you want. Now, we know why, right? Because you're allowed to mess with the many. It's when you start messing with the few that people have issues. Now you're punching down on the few. Although, I'm going to remind you, the largest religion around the world, though. So, they ain't the few. They ain't. And yet, Christianity is one of these things. You can just kind of openly mock. Everybody does. Everybody just kind of says and does what they want. They get away with it. Nobody cares. When somebody says, you're offending my faith. You're offending my religion. You're offending my freedom for religion. You're offending all of this. Shut up. Nobody cares. It kind of proves that point. Right? I don't know why suffering's the thing. I can tell you, having watched my brother suffer very much, that I think a lot of people today would give up their marriage for David and Roxanne's marriage. I will also tell you, and will apologize to my brother later for all of this segment, I don't think that would have been true back then. Sometimes these things tear people apart and tear families apart, and for sure that can happen. That did not happen in my family. And I watched those two people come together and fight for one another and give me hope and humanity in that. I've told you before, my brother physically is the strongest person I've ever known. But it's the mental toughness that makes me jealous of David. I've never seen anything like it. David, to this day, is a man of faith. Me, not so much. That happened to David. Happened to all of us in the family, but let's be honest, it happened to him and his wife. Not me. David still has an immense amount of faith. We just had a conversation about it the other night. And he said to me, I know you don't believe, but it's another issue, and he asked me not to talk to you about that one, so I'm not going to. But that's where the anger came from. And that's where the I have to prove everybody wrong came from. It's unwarranted. I think you can not believe. But once you get the Sky Wizard and all of that, you're giving up the good side of the argument. You are. And you're definitely not going to win anybody over talking about Sky Daddies. You're not. And by the way, Sky Daddy, Sky Wizard's been said only 10 million times over the last 15 years. Oh, Deshaun Watson on the massage table. Burr, 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 burr. I mean, it's like one of those. It's been hit over the head too many times. By the way, plenty of athletes disagree with Megan Rapinoe, including C.J. Stroud, former Buckeye. We'll tell you what he had to say about his relationship with the Lord next on the Stansbury Show.
You know what that conniving trickery is called?
The Stansbury Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansbury Show. I'll have new Busta Rhymes for New Turd Tuesday. We've been talking about God, and Megan Rapinoe is the reason why. Say what you want about her, love her or hate her, she's definitely influential. She makes a statement about this subject, and people talk about it for a couple of days, including us. And she had gotten hurt in a soccer match, her last one ever of her career. Quote, "I'm not a religious person or anything, but if there was a God," it should be is, like this is proof that there isn't, she said. This is effed up. It's just effed up. 6 minutes in and I eat my Achilles. And we brought up the point of like, no, dude, like that may prove that there is a God and that you needed a little humility put back into your life. You're a 1%er. It takes the average person 10 years to make what you make in a year, if not more. And yet you cry about the one thing that didn't go your way and say, this is proof God doesn't exist. As if he is real, then there should be no suffering for you whatsoever. Well, that's interesting, because you don't think he would maybe make that the way for the people who actually believe first and then get to you afterwards? Right? And I can't explain why they're suffering. And I gave you a personal story about some suffering that happened to my family and definitely rattled, I can't say my belief, but my ability to respect religion. And then I got that worked all the way around since then. And maybe it was my brother adopting a baby after losing one and providing a great life to somebody. And children can kind of make you believe in God, even if you don't. They can. It wasn't just my niece. You guys were right about the kid thing. Megan Rapinoe's not the only athlete. C.J. Stroud, former Buckeye, talked about his relationship with God. He said, for me, it's a lot of prayer, Stroud explained. A lot of knowing that God wouldn't put me in anything that I can't handle. I don't deserve his grace and his mercy, but he still gives it to me, and I love him for that. It's not about me. It's about him and his glory. So I think that's where it comes from. I think God made me like that. I've been through a lot, not only in football, but things have made me kind of chill when everything is going crazy, and I thank God for putting me in, because that's something that you need playing this position. The defense over there, they didn't blink, even though they were giving up big plays. They knew it would come down to the wire. We knew that too. And again, he starts talking about the football again there. But he's talking about his faith. A little bit beyond, by the way, thank God we won, or thank the Lord above, or this and that. I mean, he gave you statements inside of it and walked you through it. I don't have children of my own. But if I could choose a role model for my child, narcissist who thinks they have it all figured out, my right leg is the reason why this team's good, I'm Megan Rapinoe, I should be paid this, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that, I wasn't allowed to play in my last match ever, so God, that thing I told you never, that I hated and was totally against, now it's proof for sure it doesn't exist because I didn't get my way. Or C.J. Stroud. I don't believe God would ever put me through something I couldn't handle. And here I am handling it. I thank God for these abilities. Humility. It's not all me. I was born with some of these gifts. I didn't choose them. If I could choose which one of those two people, and I don't think you get to, kids kind of gravitate what they gravitate toward, they think who's cool, they think who's cool. But if I could pick, even as somebody who does not attend church on Sundays, and somebody who struggles with their belief, if I could choose which one of those two people I want my kid looking up to, I think that's the easiest choice I've ever seen in my life. A kid accepting God into their life as an athlete doesn't mean they don't have to practice in the driveway. As a matter of fact, there should be thanksgiving there for being able to practice what it is you love in your driveway, right? I notice people who don't believe a lot, when something good happens to their life, it was them. But even people who don't believe, when something bad happens, all of a sudden we're looking for somebody to place that blame because we don't understand. And so it goes on the Sky Wizard. Right? Because we're cowards, if we're honest. Let's be honest about that. That's a little bit of what that is. If I could choose which one of those people my kid looks up to, I will take CJ Stroud over Megan Rapinoe every last day of the week. I have your Rock the Bank keyword worth $1,000, and new Busta Rhymes starts New Tur Tuesday. Next on the Stansbury Show.
Jim was at the laundromat when he heard his ear said Maraca, senor, but his nose said, hey, freshest scent ever. Following his nose, Jim found a man pouring Gain scent beads into the washer. The scent, the freshness. Jim blurted, sir, your scent maracas smell amazing. You could call them scent maracas, but most noses call them Gain scent beads. Try Gain scent beads. Way fresher than detergent alone.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Warning. The show you're about to hear has been prepared by some of the best talent in the industry we could get. For the money. Do not attempt this at home. Doing so would only expose just how useless and brainless these people really are.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Are you ready? Because if we didn't give him a job, he'd probably be dead. It's the Stansbury Show. Rock 106.9.
Go Browns!
Welcome to Monday morning on the Stansbury Show on Rock 106.9, online at WRQK.com. If you missed Friday's program, I apologize. I did get the podcast up a little later than normal on Friday, but it is now available for you at WRQK.com. If you missed that show, any other show from last week, they can all be grabbed right there. Your studio is reachable for this show today at 330-450-7625 or toll free at 800-243-7625. You'll need that number around 7:45 as I'm going to get you into Wizards of Winter. That will go down at the Canton Palace Theater December 1st. You can get tickets at CantonPalaceTheater.com, or you can win your way in with me today at 7:45. We will get you hooked up with those at 9 a.m. We will, in fact, rock the bank with you for another week. We'll have 13 $1,000 keywords to pass out all damn day, and I'll pass out the very first. We'll take a look at Megan Rapinoe and what she had to say about God. This McCram, that may be 9 a.m. if we get there. Also, now we know at 8 o'clock every Monday, no matter what, we sit down and we talk to the co-founder of WaitingForNextYear.com. That's Scott. He'll be on loan today, again, from WaitingForNextYear.com. And always good to talk to him on a Victory Monday. We'll have a couple of Stephen Vogt questions for him as well with the Guardians, but the Browns pulled one out of the fire yesterday. That game started horrifically. I mean, bad. You turn on the game and it was almost reminiscent of the Steelers game earlier this season where it was like, oh no, it's going to be one of these where nothing goes right. And Deshaun looked bad early on in that game, and I mean bad. Not bad for a start. I mean, he looked bad. He was 1 of 9 at one point with 19 yards. And again, that interception to start out the game. Deflected pass, and a lot of people were making too... I went to the socials, and I saw everybody was giving up on him, and I was like, don't type anything. The moment I saw that, I was like, I'm not tweeting during this game. I'm not doing it. And so I just sat and watched the game. And I'm happier I did that. I'm happier I did that because I didn't necessarily have to eat a bunch of my words here. Now, on a Cardinals team, you beat the Ravens. On the road, in Baltimore, after your quarterback starts that game like that, in that manner, and they dug deep and got themselves back into it. So here's what I walk away thinking about Deshaun Watson yesterday. He's proved everybody wrong. Everybody's wrong now. It's not a crazy thought process to think about another person, especially athletes who were paid a lot of money to begin with, which I thought was a really boneheaded decision by Stefanski. A lot more this morning than we are right now, right? Fair enough. But Deshaun stays in that game, grinds, plays great in the second half, and wins. Yesterday's a perfect example of a game where if he was just phoning it in for the bread, doesn't care about anything because he got his money, he stays in that locker room. Or comes back out, they put a boot on the ankle or whatever the hell it is to appease fans, and he's just going to sit there. But that isn't what he did. He starts that game in horrific fashion. He gets hurt in the game, comes back out in the second half, balls out, and gives you the win. So we can shut down he's just going to phone it in forever for the money narrative, right? We've seen it. Divisional game, a rival. Your old team, for crying out loud. And that guy goes out there and gets you that kind of win. I'm sorry, he's kind of proven it now. Just going to phone it in for the money for the guaranteed contract. I don't see it. I just don't see it. Now, he did not start that game great. Like I said, I think it was 1 of 9, 19 yards at one point. Now, Njoku had dropped a pretty easy ball in there. Okay, great. So he would have been 2 of 9, right? With a few more yards. And Njoku did drop that ball right there on that sideline, I think it was. I mean, it was horrific. Seriously, nobody within 3 yards of him, and just dropped it. Now, things happen, right? You're not going to make every catch. And Njoku comes out later in that game, makes a couple of big grabs for Deshaun to kind of bail himself and his quarterback out there. Absolutely love it. I'll tell you another takeaway I had from yesterday's game. Nobody in this league is talking about Jerome Ford enough. Nobody. Admit it. We don't have to admit it. I can go back to the podcast. After that Steelers game, when he gets hurt, the season was done. Washed. We're done. Best running back in the league by a country mile is hurt. He's not going to play all year. We're screwed. Season over. Pack it in. That's what we all thought, myself included. That's what everybody thought after that game. Jerome Ford just quietly going about his business. 17 carries yesterday for 107 yards. Nobody, including Cleveland Browns fans, are talking about be doing it so much. You don't want anybody to think you're just okay with letting Nick go, or let's still show appreciation for Nick Chubb. And I get all of that. Absolutely I do. But at some point, it's going to be time for Jerome Ford to get his flowers, and I think that day is today. I think it is. That guy has kept you in games. He has grossed a hole, and you thought, oh no, here we go. 106. Tickets at CantonPalaceTheater.com, or when you're waiting with me at 7:45 this morning. We've been talking about the Browns a little bit, obviously. Big win yesterday on the road at Baltimore. And it goes to show, yesterday does, that Rob Parker from FS1, Fox Sports Radio 2, does the Odd Couple with Chris Broussard. He's been right forever. Sports has a short menu. It's 2 items long. Wins and losses. That's it. In the beginning of that game, it was, what the hell is Kevin Stefanski doing? 3rd and 16, you throw the ball extremely short to Njoku? What the hell are we doing? You're not even, Vilma on the call yesterday, who I don't think is all that great, but yesterday was like, what the hell are they even doing? They're not even trying to get the first down here? Boneheaded. You don't trust Dustin Hopkins to hit the 60-yarder? What the hell are we doing here? P.J. Walker, Hail Mary? If we lose that game yesterday, if they lost that game yesterday, we're all sitting here looking for a new coach this morning. Whether or not the team's doing that, that'd be a different conversation. Whether or not the fans are doing it, come on. He wins this game yesterday. They, as a collective, win the game yesterday. And now you're seeing a bunch of people talk about how Kevin Stefanski should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. Which yesterday, that is a big win. You're without your starting running back. You had holes all up and down that offensive line. You saw it early in the game. Deshaun was running for his life early in that game. Got that team together. They pull out the win. And I was giving a lot of credit to Jerome Ford because I feel like he has stepped into that position and has delivered. I mean, after that Pittsburgh loss and Chubb goes down, we all thought, this is it. Going to be a long year. Oh no, here we go again. Meanwhile, the quarterback everybody tells me isn't any good is now 5-1 as a starter. I mean, I guess he sucks, right? I mean, the quarterback just sucks. Not worth the money, not worth the drama, not worth anything. 5-1 as a starter. So, pretty good. Pretty good, right? Better than being 1-5 as a starter, right? Now, the defense helps, sure. Absolutely. You know when Tom Brady won a bunch of Super Bowls? When he had a great defense. You know when Aaron Rodgers won his last one? When he had a really good defense. You know when the Ravens won it? When they had a really good defense. Defense wins championships. Just does. Always has. We don't have pretty plays and, really good highlights for soul of inches, but welcome to fast speed. Like that all day, every day. That was literally what you saw all the time. Anytime they ran the ball, it was like, okay, dude, get ready because you're about to get a huge lick right here on this side. You can hear the stadium gasp as that happened yesterday. You just don't see it as much. Most people consume it via the television. That's how we're watching it. That's how we take it into our lives. It's a television show. 3rd and 7, good. Nick Chubb is the best running back in this league.
Show on Rock 106.9.
9 a.m. this morning, I'm going to rock the bank with you. You're going to grab an extra $1,000. If you're hosting Thanksgiving at your house this year, you're probably going to need $1,000. Probably going to cost you $300-400 to put the dinner on the table. Absolutely bonkers what's happening with pricing right now. So we'll take a little bite out of it for you, ease that pain a touch at 9 a.m. and give you your $1,000. You know how a lot of people like to get their money, or try to anyway. Gambling. Listen to this stuff. Ohioans have put down more than $1.7 since it became legal at the beginning of the year. That's according to monthly revenue report released by the Ohio Casino Control Commission. I believe this was April 3rd when they put that out. Good Lord. So by now, it's going to be that much more. Jeez. That's a lot of money, man. Yeah, I think it was $1 billion in the first month. That they legalized sports gambling in Ohio. $1 billion in a month, man. It's interesting. Now, the NFL's not the, now college football is going to have a lot of gambling in it too. Like, there's going to be a ton of it. I bring it up because ESPN rolled out ESPN Bet. And it's a story because they're not going to allow any of their insiders and reporters to bet on the sports or the leagues that they cover. Quote, according to the stringent guidelines which were released internally on Friday, ESPN talent designed as insiders or reporters are prohibited from placing, soliciting, or facilitating any bet on leagues they cover like the NFL or the NBA. ESPN especially does not want confidential information they gather used for betting purposes, whether it's scoops on a player's injury, information about some officials, players, coaches, or management that goes for somebody else placing the bets for them too. So again, this is about the insiders. Think Adam Schefter here, those kind of guys. Woj, if you happen to be a big NBA guy. Wojnarowski, I believe, is Adrian. Woj Bomb, right, for the sports fans. Woj will give you those. He's more of their basketball guy there. So they're not able to gamble. From on the radio, you hear this, and all of a sudden, everybody I know likes them. Everybody I know listens, and the company's still like, yeah, so what? I don't care. We signed them for nothing. That's what we do. We rub our hands together and think about how we have the best on-air staff for next to nothing. That's literally their job. My job's to do this. Their job's to make sure I don't make too much money. That's how it works. So they're probably paying